Don't ask, just come with me. The words were barely louder than the wind, yet they cut through the night like a blade. Queen Alara's fingers closed around the human's wrist, firm and shaking at the same time, as alarms screamed somewhere deep inside the palace behind them. Daniel did not move at first. He stood frozen on the balcony, staring past her shoulder at the sky where strange constellations burned in blue and silver, wondering how his life had led him here, barefoot on alien marble, about to run with a queen who looked terrified. Behind them, a blast door slammed shut. The sound echoed across the grand hall, and Alara flinched as if struck. "They know," she whispered. "If they find you here, they will kill you before dawn." That was enough. Daniel tightened his grip on her hand and nodded, even though his heart felt like it might tear free from his chest. He had been a guest, then a curiosity, then a secret. Now he was something far more dangerous. They ran. The balcony opened into a private passage, one few knew still existed. Alara lifted her silver gown and moved with practiced speed, her crown catching the starlight for a brief second before shadows swallowed them. Daniel struggled to keep up, his lungs burning as unfamiliar gravity pressed down on him. As they descended the narrow steps, he risked a glance at her face. In the dim light, she did not look like the untouchable ruler he had first seen weeks ago. She looked young, scared, and unbearably alone. "Why me?" he finally asked, the question tearing free before he could stop it. Alara did not answer. She pushed open a hidden door, and cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of metal and ozone. They emerged onto a lower terrace overlooking the city, towering spires, glowing veins of energy, and millions of lives sleeping, unaware their queen was running. Daniel stared despite himself. It was beautiful, it was terrifying, it was not his world. A transport craft waited at the edge, engines humming softly. Alara led him toward it, then suddenly stopped. For a heartbeat, the universe felt suspended between breaths. "I am breaking every law my people hold sacred," she said quietly. "If I do this, there is no return." Daniel searched her eyes. They were blue, like Earth skis he had not seen in years, and filled with something dangerously close to hope. He realized then that this was not only about saving him. "What happens if we don't go?" he asked. Alara looked back toward the palace, its golden halls glowing like a false sunrise. "Then I become the queen they want," she said, "and you become a lesson." The engines of the craft rose in pitch, as if sensing the moment's weight. Daniel felt the enormity of it crash over him. He was human, weak, short-lived, insignificant by galactic standards. He had been told that since the day he arrived. Yet here stood an alien queen, risking everything for him. He stepped onto the craft. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the alarms changed tone. Deeper, angrier. Alara followed him inside, sealing the hatch with a trembling hand. The craft lifted just as energy bolts struck the terrace behind them, shattering stone. They shot into the sky. Below them, the palace shrank into a jewel of light. Above them, the stars opened like a door. Daniel's stomach twisted as the city vanished into darkness, replaced by the vast, uncaring beauty of space. Only then did Alara finally collapse into the seat opposite him. She removed her crown and held it in her lap, staring at it as though it no longer belonged to her. "I was told humans are reckless," she said softly. "That you feel too much, love too fiercely, and refuse to accept your place." Daniel swallowed. "Is that why you chose me?" She met his gaze again, and this time she did not look away. "No," she replied. "I chose you because when everyone else bowed, you asked me if I was afraid." The craft jumped into hyperspace, stars stretching into endless light. Daniel felt tears he did not remember earning burn his eyes. He did not yet know where they were going, who was hunting them, or why the fate of two worlds suddenly felt tied to his fragile human heart. But as the galaxy bent around them, one question refused to leave his mind. What had a human done to make an alien queen risk her entire empire? And what would it cost them both in the end? The stars settled back into shape, and the silence afterward felt heavier than the jump itself. Daniel realized his hands were shaking only when Alara gently reached across the narrow space and rested her fingers over his knuckles. "You are safe for now," she said, though her voice carried little certainty. "But safety is a fragile thing." The craft drifted on silent engines, its interior dim and humming like a living heart. Daniel took a slow breath, trying to calm the storm inside him. He had fled danger before on Earth, but this felt different. This was not escape. It was exile. "Where are we going?" he asked. Alara leaned back, her eyes fixed on a floating display of shifting star paths. "Somewhere no one will think to look," she replied. "A place my mother once hid me when I was still a child." That single sentence raised more questions than it answered. Daniel watched her profile, the soft glow of alien constellations reflecting off her skin. The crown lay forgotten beside her, its cold metal catching the light like an accusation. "You said your people would kill me," he said quietly. "Why?" Alara closed her eyes. For a long moment she did not speak. When she finally did, her words came carefully, as if each one might shatter something fragile inside her. "Because you should not exist here," she said. "Humans were meant to be observers, silent allies, not catalysts." Daniel frowned. "Catalysts for what?" She turned to face him fully now, her blue eyes sharp and searching. "For change," she said, "and change terrifies empires." The craft shuddered lightly as it adjusted course. Daniel felt a cold knot form in his chest. He had not come to the stars to change anything. He had come because Earth was tired of being small and afraid, and someone needed to speak for it. "What did I do?" he asked. "What did I break?" Alara gave a sad smile. "You broke nothing," she said. "You reminded us of something we spent centuries forgetting." She rose from her seat and walked to the narrow viewport, gazing out at the endless dark. "My people believe emotion is weakness. We rule through order, through control. Even our queens are taught to hide their hearts." Daniel remembered the first time he had seen her, standing in the grand hall beneath golden arches, regal and untouchable. He had bowed like everyone else, yet somehow she had noticed the hesitation in his movement, the fear he tried to hide. "You looked at me like I was human," she continued. "Not a symbol, not a throne." He swallowed. "You are human," he said without thinking, "at least where it matters." She laughed softly, the sound fragile and surprised. "If anyone else heard you say that, they would call it treason." "Is it?" he asked. Alara turned back to him, and her expression grew serious again. "It is worse," she said. "It is truth." The craft suddenly emitted a low warning tone. Alara stiffened, moving back to the controls in a heartbeat. Symbols flared red across the display. "They found us already?" Daniel asked, dread creeping into his voice. "Not yet," she said, fingers flying across unseen interfaces. "But they are looking. My council will not rest until they know why I ran." "Why did you?" he pressed. She paused just for a second, long enough for him to see the fear she tried so hard to hide. "Because if I stayed," she said, "I would have ordered your execution myself." The words struck harder than any weapon. Daniel felt his breath catch, his chest tightening with a mix of shock and understanding. He imagined it clearly now, her on the throne, calm and composed, condemning him with a single raised hand. "And that terrified you?" he asked. "No," she replied. "That I would survive it terrified me more." The warning tone faded, leaving only the quiet hum once again. Alara sank into the seat opposite him, suddenly looking very tired. "My people think strength is the absence of feeling," she said. "You showed me that feeling is what gives strength meaning." Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "Then why not tell them?" She met his gaze, and her eyes hardened. "Because they would rather burn the truth than let it change them." Outside, a distant nebula bloomed into view, its colors slow and mournful. Daniel realized they were moving farther from everything he knew. Earth, humanity, even the fragile role he had carved for himself among the stars. "What happens when they catch us?" he asked. Alara looked at the nebula, then back at him. "Then they will ask me to choose again," she said, "between my crown and your life." Daniel felt a strange calm settle over him. "And this time?" She reached for his hand once more, gripping it tightly. "This time," she whispered, "I already know my answer." As the craft slipped deeper into uncharted space, a new question burned in Daniel's mind, one he feared to ask. If a queen could abandon her empire for one human, what kind of storm would that choice unleash on the galaxy behind them? The craft drifted silently through the void, the stars stretching like silver threads outside the viewport. Inside, the air was tense, charged with unspoken fears. Daniel sat opposite Alara, still gripping her hand, feeling the pulse of her heartbeat against his palm. It was human enough to calm him, yet alien enough to remind him how far he was from home. "I need to know," Daniel said finally, his voice breaking the quiet, "why you ran with me of all people. I'm not a hero, I'm not anything." Alara's lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment she did not answer, and Daniel thought he had pushed too far. Then, slowly, she leaned back, staring at the stars as if searching for memories in their distant light. "You remind me of my brother," she said softly, almost to herself. "He died believing in something too fragile to survive." Her eyes glistened, reflecting distant nebulae. "He trusted even when it meant risking everything. You have that same stubbornness, Daniel, that same heart." Daniel's throat tightened. He had not expected confession, not this early. "Your brother?" he asked cautiously. "Yes," she whispered. "He taught me everything about courage, about humanity in its rawest form, and then they took him." Her gaze hardened. "My people, my council, my mother." Daniel realized she was not just running from political enemies. They were shadows of her past, dark enough to haunt her even now. "So you're running from them," he said slowly, "and for me." Alara turned to him, her blue eyes luminous in the dim cabin light. "Not just for you, for what you represent, for the choice I can make without fear of judgment." The words sank in. Daniel had lived his life as a small human, invisible in the cosmos, often dismissed and underestimated. Yet here he was, caught in the gravitational pull of a queen's rebellion, a rebellion born from loss, love, and impossible choices. Suddenly, the craft jolted. Alarms flared red, vibrating through the cabin. Daniel clutched the console as warning symbols scrolled across the holographic display. "They found us," Alara said, her voice tight. She pressed a series of controls, and the engines hummed louder, the craft twisting gracefully through the void. "My trackers, my guards, they're faster than I thought. They will not stop until you are back behind those walls or dead." Daniel swallowed, his heart hammering. "So what do we do?" Alara's fingers danced across the controls with precision and speed, yet her face betrayed a rare strain of worry. "We cannot fight them all," she said. "Not yet. We can only outrun them and hide. I know a place, a sanctuary beyond their reach, but it is dangerous, uncharted. Even I have never gone so far." Daniel swallowed again, but this time the fear was mixed with something new. Awe. He had run, fled, and survived, but never had he felt the weight of someone else's trust so completely. Here was a queen risking everything, not for her empire, not for glory, but for him. As the craft streaked past a dying star, its light illuminating Alara's face, Daniel noticed something else. Pain, yes, but also determination. She carried the weight of a lifetime of duty, a throne built on sacrifice, yet she had chosen him. Daniel began, then paused. Words failed him. How could he explain that all his life he had wanted meaning, and now it was staring him in the face in the form of a young woman with a crown abandoned at her feet? Alara seemed to read his thoughts. "You are human," she said, almost smiling. "And that is why you matter. You feel too much, you fear, you hope. You are fragile, yet you survive. That is what scares them." Daniel's gaze wandered back to the stars. He imagined the fleets behind them, burning with orders, obeying fear and tradition. And yet here he was, clinging to the hand of a queen who refused to let him vanish into insignificance. The craft shuddered again, not from pursuit, but from the gravitational pull of a nearby asteroid field. Alara leaned forward, adjusting the trajectory with deadly precision. "We are close," she said. "Close to sanctuary, close to a place where you can breathe, where I can decide who I am without shadows pressing down on me." Daniel nodded, though his mind spun with questions. Sanctuary? How far? What would happen when they arrived? Could a human truly survive in a place untouched by the cruelty of a galactic empire? Ilara glanced at him, her expression unreadable, her voice soft. Whatever happens next, trust me, even if the stars themselves betray us, I will not. As the asteroid field loomed ahead, glittering like a storm of shattered diamonds, Daniel felt a surge of hope and fear in equal measure. He realized that whatever awaited them beyond those rocks, it would change them both forever, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The craft twisted, dove, and disappeared into shadow, and in the quiet aftermath, Daniel understood one undeniable truth. He had not been saved by chance. He had been chosen, and in the stars, choices could ignite worlds. The asteroid field stretched endlessly, jagged rocks suspended in the void like frozen shards of glass. Daniel gripped the edge of his seat as the craft weaved between them, the engines straining under sudden bursts of acceleration. Ilara's hands were steady, precise, but Daniel could feel the tension radiating through her like heat from a forge. "This is it," she said finally, her voice low. "The sanctuary lies just beyond this field. No one from my empire dares to cross it. They fear what waits there." Daniel swallowed, trying to imagine a place untouched by empires, by politics, by fear. "And what is it?" he asked. "A planet, a station." Ilara's eyes softened, almost wistful. "It is everything and nothing," she said. "A place of exile and freedom, a place my mother used to call the heart of silence." The craft shuddered as it narrowly avoided a massive asteroid, and Daniel felt his chest tighten with a mix of exhilaration and dread. "Heart of silence," he repeated. "Sounds lonely." Ilara glanced at him, the corners of her lips twitching. "Lonely, yes, but for the first time in my life I will not be judged there. No council, no soldiers, no throne, just me and choices I can live with." Daniel hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning inside him since the jump into hyperspace. Do you ever regret leaving?" Ilara's gaze fell to her hands, folded over the edge of her seat. The soft glow of the control panels highlighted the faint lines of worry on her face, the kind that no crown could hide. "Every day," she said, "but regret is only the price we pay for choosing something that truly matters, and you matter more than I can explain." Daniel's throat tightened. He had expected fear, anger, maybe despair, but not this raw, fragile honesty. The queen who had seemed untouchable, untouchably regal, was human beneath the armor of her title, and he was the one she had risked everything for. Suddenly the craft lurched violently. Daniel's stomach dropped as alarms blared. Ilara's eyes sharpened, hands dancing over the console. "Unregistered ships," she said, voice tense. "They've followed us farther than I thought possible. Whoever they are persistent." Daniel leaned forward. "Can we outrun them?" Ilara shook her head. "Not through space alone. The sanctuary has defenses, old, ancient defenses. It will protect us if we can reach it." Minutes stretched into eternity as they maneuvered through the last of the asteroid field. Daniel felt every heartbeat like a drum in his chest. Every decision Ilara made a testament to her skill and desperation. Then, through a narrow opening between two massive asteroids, the craft emerged into a serene expanse. A planet hung suspended, cloaked in mist and silver light, its surface dotted with luminous lakes and strange forests that shimmered even in the distant starlight. Daniel exhaled sharply. This is it." Ilara nodded, a rare smile flickering across her face. "Welcome to the heart of silence," she said softly. "Here we can breathe, here we are free." The craft descended through the planet's atmosphere, the engines humming gently now. Daniel watched as the forests and lakes revealed themselves fully, colors he had never imagined, sounds that seemed to hum with life itself. For a moment, he forgot about the Empire, the hunters, the danger. He simply felt alive. As the craft landed on a platform carved into crystalline stone, Ilara turned to him. "You must understand," she said, her voice firm but warm. "We are not safe forever. My people will not stop searching, but here we can plan. Here we can exist and maybe, just maybe, change what comes next." Daniel stepped out onto the planet, the air crisp and sweet, carrying hints of flowers and something unnameable. He glanced at Ilara, noticing for the first time the weight she bore, not as a queen, but as a human who had made the impossible choice. "You trust me," he said quietly, more statement than question. Alara's gaze met his, unwavering. "I trust you because you are human," she replied. "You see what we fear to admit, and yet you survive. That is why you matter." Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest, a tether forming between them stronger than any crown or throne. He realized that whatever lay ahead, enemies, battles, heartbreak, it was already different because she had chosen him. As they walked toward the crystalline halls of the sanctuary, the planet glowing softly under alien stars, Daniel felt something he had never felt in his life. Hope. Not the fragile, fleeting hope of a single human, but the steady, unyielding hope born from choice, courage, and a connection that spanned worlds. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy outside could rage and burn, but here, beneath the alien sky and the luminous forests, they had carved a small space where anything, even love, even freedom, was possible. The sanctuary whispered promises of safety and secrets, but Daniel also felt the weight of a question he could not yet voice. How long could such a fragile peace last when an empire burned behind them and a queen had risked everything for him? The heart of silence was more beautiful than Daniel had imagined. Crystalline towers rose from the mist like frozen waterfalls, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with life. Yet beneath its serene surface, Daniel could feel tension, like a hidden current beneath calm waters. Freedom had its own cost, and he was beginning to understand that. Ilara led him through the halls carved from translucent stone, the walls glowing softly with an inner light. "You must understand," she said. "We are not safe here forever. My people are relentless. My council will never forgive me for this." Daniel followed her silently, trying to process the weight of her words. He had thought danger was behind them once they left the palace, but now he realized it was merely waiting, coiled and patient. Why take me with you?" he asked at last, his voice barely more than a whisper. Ilara stopped in front of a tall window that overlooked a glowing lake below. She leaned on the frame, staring at the water's surface as if seeing something from her past. "Because you remind me that I am more than a queen," she said. "You remind me that I am alive, that every choice I make can be mine, not dictated by fear or tradition." Daniel wanted to protest, to tell her that he was just a human, weak and small, not worthy of such trust. But the sincerity in her eyes stopped him. He had seen empires crumble, but never someone so young, so powerful, willing to risk everything for one fragile connection. The craft's alarms had faded into memory, replaced now by the soft hum of the sanctuary. Yet the peace was deceptive. Daniel could sense it in her posture, the tight line of her jaw, the way her fingers curled and unclenched repeatedly. She had chosen him, yes, but choice always came with consequences. Suddenly the soft glow of the halls flickered. A shadow passed over the crystalline walls, fleeting but unmistakable. Daniel tensed, heart pounding. "Ilara," he began. She turned, her expression sharp, eyes narrowing. "We are not alone," she said. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of authority. "They've found a way to track us, though not yet fully. They test the edges of the sanctuary, probing for weaknesses." Daniel's stomach dropped. "So they can't reach us yet." "No," she replied, her gaze returning to the horizon. "But it is only a matter of time. Every day we remain here is a day I gamble with everything I am. My crown, my people, my life." He swallowed hard, understanding for the first time that freedom was never free. Ilara had given him a gift, yes, but at a price that could shatter them both. "And if they come for you?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Ilara's blue eyes softened, and she took his hand once more, holding it as if anchoring herself. "Then we fight," she said simply. "Together, because this," she gestured to the sanctuary, to the stars, to him, "is worth fighting for." Daniel felt the enormity of her words crash over him. She had abandoned empires, courtiers, and tradition for him, for a human. And she was telling him now that every danger, every threat, every shadow lurking behind them would be faced together. They walked toward the lake, the soft light casting patterns across their faces. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken fears, yet also full of trust. Daniel realized that no human battle, no earthly struggle had ever felt as significant as this. Here, every choice could ignite worlds. As they approached the water, Daniel looked up at her. "Do you ever wonder if this was too much?" he asked. Alara smiled faintly, a mixture of weariness and defiance. "Every day," she admitted. "But then I see you and I remember why I risked it all. Freedom, hope, connection, these are the things worth dying for. These are the things worth fighting for." The lake shimmered under alien stars, reflecting their faces back at them. Daniel saw courage there, but also fragility, fear, and hope tangled together. And in that reflection, he understood something he had not before. Heroism was not always grand battles or epic victories. Sometimes it was simply choosing to stand beside someone, even when the universe itself threatened to tear you apart. Alara squeezed his hand, breaking his reverie. "Rest now," she said. "We cannot fight tomorrow if we fall apart tonight." Daniel nodded, letting her words settle, feeling the gravity of the sanctuary and the price of its safety. Outside, distant shadows moved in the void, hunting, probing, waiting. But for the first time, Daniel felt he could face them, not as a scared human, but as someone chosen, someone significant, someone alive. And somewhere in the depths of the heart of silence, he knew the real battle had only just begun. The morning on the heart of silence came slow and soft, the alien sun spilling pale light across crystalline towers and silver forests. Daniel woke to find Alara already awake, standing at the edge of the terrace, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the mist kissed the sky. She looked smaller than the queen he had first met, yet somehow fiercer, her crown now only a memory resting in the sanctuary's halls. "You didn't sleep," he said quietly, approaching her. Alara shook her head, hair catching the light like spun gold. "I never truly sleep anymore," she admitted. "Not since I chose this path, not since I chose you." Her voice carried no arrogance, only truth, the kind that made Daniel's chest ache. He followed her gaze outward, where distant shadows of alien ships flickered against the starlight. "They won't stop," he said, more a statement than a question. "No," Alara replied softly. "Not until they understand that I am not theirs to command and that you are not theirs to punish. Every day we remain here, we defy them. Every moment is a rebellion." Daniel swallowed, feeling the weight of it all, the palace, the council, the empire she had walked away from. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Alara's eyes flickered with something human, something fragile. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but regret is different from fear. Regret is understanding the price. Fear is what they want me to feel." She turned toward him then, her gaze steady. "I am not afraid, not of them, not of what comes next, only losing you." Daniel felt a jolt of warmth, unsteady yet real, and he stepped closer. "I won't let that happen," he said. "Not while I'm here." She studied him, her expression softening. "You have no idea what that means to me." The moment was broken by a sudden tremor through the sanctuary. Daniel's heart leapt into his throat as Alara spun toward the sound, fingers already flying across the control panels. Outside, a small patrol of ships from her empire approached the sanctuary, testing defenses, scanning for signs of life. "They are closer than I feared," Alara muttered, her voice tight. She looked at Daniel, the vulnerability of a human touching something deep in her expression. "If they breach the outer perimeter, we may have to fight." Daniel's pulse quickened. "We can," he said, surprising himself with the conviction. "We'll face them together, whatever it takes." Alara's eyes softened, and for the first time a faint smile crossed her face. "I hoped you'd say that," she whispered. "I needed to know that even a human could hold the line beside a queen." They moved through the sanctuary, preparing defenses, checking systems, and reinforcing shields. Yet amidst the urgency, Daniel noticed something extraordinary. Despite the looming threat, Alara's care never wavered. She guided him, instructed him, yet always checked to make sure he was safe, that he was learning, surviving, and ready. Hours passed. The alien sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the crystalline walls. Daniel stood beside Alara on a high balcony, watching the patrol ships retreating after finding nothing, their engines glowing faintly against the darkening sky. "They won't give up," Daniel said, voice tight with realization. "They will keep coming." Alara nodded, her gaze distant, thoughtful. No, she said. But each time they fail, they learn, and every time we endure, we grow stronger, not just in strength, in trust, in choice. You have no idea how rare that is among my people. Daniel looked at her, seeing not just the alien queen, but the woman who had chosen life, love, and freedom over duty, over power, over everything she had ever been taught to revere. He felt a surge of something fierce and protective, a sense that he was no longer just a human adrift in the cosmos. He was part of something larger, something that defied empires. Ilara's hand found his, gripping tightly. "Tomorrow," she said, voice quiet yet resolute, "we plan. And tomorrow we fight not just to survive, but to show them that no throne, no empire, no law can command the heart of a human or the choice of a queen." Daniel swallowed, feeling both the enormity of what lay ahead and the strength of the bond forming between them. For the first time, he understood that courage was not just action. It was connection, trust, and the willingness to face the impossible with someone who believed in you completely. As night fell over the heart of silence, the alien stars reflecting in the crystalline towers, Daniel realized something profound. Survival alone was no longer enough. To honor Ilara's choice, he would have to fight, not just with his hands, but with his heart. And in that moment, he vowed silently to himself, to her, and to the fragile freedom they had carved among the stars. No force in the galaxy would take her, or him, without paying the price. The sanctuary was safe for now, but Daniel knew deep down that the real battle, the one that would test their trust, their courage, and their hearts, was only beginning. The dawn on the heart of silence broke with a light unlike any Daniel had seen before, soft and silver, flowing over the crystalline towers and alien forests like a whisper. The sanctuary seemed alive, pulsing with quiet energy as if it too understood the danger lurking beyond its borders. Daniel and Ilara stood together on the terrace, shoulders almost touching, hearts aligned in the tense calm before the storm. "They are coming," Ilara said, her voice low but steady. "I can feel them probing closer. This time it won't be just scouts. They will send everything." Daniel's chest tightened, but he did not step back. "Then we fight," he said simply. "Together, no hesitation." Ilara turned to him, her eyes bright, filled with a mixture of fear, pride, and something deeper he could not name. "Do you understand what that means?" she asked. "If we fail, if I fail—" Her voice faltered, and for the first time he saw the weight of the crown she had left behind, pressing down on her shoulders even here, far from her throne. "I understand," Daniel said, gripping her hand tightly. "But I also understand why you chose me, because no matter what comes, we'll face it together, and maybe that is worth more than a crown." Her lips quivered and she nodded once, sharply. "Then let's not waste another moment." The heart of silence stirred as they prepared. Energy fields shimmered, defensive barriers activated, and strange, ancient mechanisms hummed to life deep within the planet. Daniel moved beside Ilara, following her instructions, holding nothing back despite fear that clawed at his chest. Each decision, each action was a testament to trust and courage, a human standing shoulder to shoulder with a queen who had defied an empire. Hours passed. The first waves of ships emerged from the void, glinting like shards of steel against the alien sun. Daniel's hands shook, but he forced them steady, following Ilara's calm commands. Their unity, their connection, was unspoken yet undeniable, a rhythm that carried them through the chaos. One ship broke through the outer defenses, streaking toward the sanctuary like a blade. Ilara's blue eyes flashed with determination as she guided the craft's energy, striking it with precision. The ship exploded in a cascade of light, and Daniel felt his chest swell with a mix of awe and fear. She was unstoppable, but she had chosen to fight not for her throne, but for him, for them. As the battle raged, Daniel realized something profound. Heroism was not measured in victories or titles, but in choice. Ilara had chosen him, a human, over centuries of duty. And he, in turn, chose to stand with her, knowing the universe could crush them at any moment. Finally, the last of the enemy ships retreated, leaving the heart of silence battered but unbroken. The sanctuary hummed softly, alive and aware, sheltering the two who had dared to defy the galaxy. Daniel collapsed against a crystalline railing, breathing heavily, and Ilara stepped beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "We survived," he whispered, voice trembling with exhaustion and disbelief. Yes, she replied, her own breath shaky. But survival is only the beginning. The real choice comes now. Daniel looked at her, seeing the queen and the woman entwined in one fragile, indomitable form. "What choice?" he asked. "To live freely," she said, taking his hands in hers. "To accept that love, hope, and courage are worth more than crowns, empires, or fear. To be human and to be chosen." Daniel felt tears sting his eyes. "Then I choose," he said simply, voice unwavering. "I choose you, here now always." Alara's lips curved into a smile, radiant and soft, the weight of centuries lifting from her shoulders. "Then we begin," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. "Together." Above them, the alien sky stretched infinitely, stars burning like a promise. Behind them, empires raged and schemes unfolded. But in this sanctuary between human courage and alien choice, a new world was born, not of politics or power, but of trust, defiance, and love. For Daniel and Alara, the galaxy could wait. Here, under the starry sky, they had chosen each other, and that choice alone held the power to reshape everything. The Heart of Silence was no longer just a sanctuary. It was proof that even in the vast, indifferent cosmos, humanity, and the courage to love, could stand unshaken, unbroken, and eternal. And as the first light of the alien sun reflected on their joined hands, Daniel realized something he would never forget. The universe did not create heroes. Choice did, and he had just made the bravest one of all.